Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hail at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
After the Civil War, President Lincoln decided that there should be a medal for bravery to decorate men who have gone above and beyond the call of duty in combat on the battlefield. So the Medal of Honor was designed. Now there are three distinct Medals of Honor. For the Marines, it was worn on a lapel, a pendant, and it was hung on an anchor, as mine is. But for the soldiers, it was hung on an eagle, and the eagle was sitting on crossed artillery rifles and cannonballs. But it was worn on the same red, white, and blue lapel. In the 1900s, a review of those who received the Medal of Honor in the Civil War was undertaken by the Army, and it was determined that a number of units received the award. When it was designed to be an award to an individual for acts of heroism, so the Army recalled thousands of medals that had been presented. But at that time, the two medals were taken off to the lapel and put on this blue ribbon that I'm wearing around my neck. And it has 13 stars. And of course, the 13 stars stand for the original 13 colonies. And then when the Army Air Corps became the United States Air Force, the Air Force designed their own medal. And in 1963, the first medals being awarded during the Vietnam War. The acts of heroism have to be above and beyond the call of duty, which means if you hadn't performed those acts, then you wouldn't have been called to task, chastised, or disciplined. And it has to be observed by at least 2 individuals. And then a recommendation is written up, and there's a formula, a criteria written in an awards manual, and then it goes up to various levels of command for approval, ending up on the desks of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, which make a recommendation to the Secretary of Defense, who then recommends to the President of the United States. If approved by the Congress, then it is presented by the President. It is our goal to go forth and to use this medal as a catalytic agent to get people's attention, to remind them how important it is to love their country, to remember what their country is and how their country was formed, and how those people who have worn the uniform in defense of freedom, what they have gone through to ensure that we have the freedoms that we have today. When we gather as a group, we go out into schools and we talk about service, patriotism, Americanism, the trials and tribulations of being in the military. But if people didn't stand up and toe the line and do what had to be done, where would we be today? Make youngsters think about the past, because the past is the foundation upon which they can build their future.
This, I can't believe, you know, when we look back 13 years ago where you were at in the building of this organization where you're at today. It's incredible, and I'm so very humbled and proud of all the great work you've done. It's a diamond, I guarantee, in this great United States of America. Drew, we're so thankful that you had the vision and the heart to do the work you did here. And Brad, thank you for joining in that effort. And this is one of the most incredible organizations in the United States as far as I'm concerned. And I was, you know, through my career, I've had an opportunity to work with great leaders. I've spent some time, of course, I always felt like my father was a good leader. He tapped us pretty early in the morning on the ranch, and then I had the opportunity to work for Senator Brown, as well as, you know, spending the last 20 years at the Bill Daniels Fund. So we've had some great years, and so I thought at that end of that 40-plus year career work time, I'd come home and retire and bake cookies with the grandkids. Well, I've been honored. I of course, received that call from Drew and Brad, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you. It's a wonderful opportunity for us as we look at this country we're at today and what we can do with this educational programming across the state of Colorado. When we think about all of the exceptional opportunities in education, especially the virtual component, what we here, or I should say what Brad and his team does here at the Media Center. They have volumes of films and footage that they'll be able to reach to and help develop, so we can take a lot of this programming virtually across our state as well as to other states, and literally reach into homeschools and into opportunities that we haven't had the opportunity to reach at this time. So we're going to expand, we're going to strengthen, and we're going to put the Center for American Values in every home that we can across this great nation. And while we're doing that, you know, we're also going to be, you know, working with great donors and organizations across our great state and trying to make certain that we build those relationships. And we're so grateful that you're here today, because without our great supporters, our great board, we couldn't do what we do today. So thank you for that. I'll give you a great round of applause. Today's a special day. We're going to hear from one of our own, the one and only living Medal of Honor recipient from our home of heroes. This man, he celebrated a career in military service, or he started his military career right here in Pueblo, if I've got this right, at Centennial High School here in Pueblo. With the junior ROTC program. From there, he joined the Army at the age of 17. He served our country for 20 years in the Army and followed attacks. And after the attack on 9/11, he served as Alaska's first Director of Homeland Security. From there, he worked on the anti-terrorist assignments. Before we hear from this exceptional man, please turn your attention to the screen.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
For the final time during my presidency, this House is graced with the company of the heroes who have scaled heights known only to a very few men in this land.
The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress March 3, 1863, has awarded in the name of the Congress the Medal of Honor to Staff Sergeant Drew D. Dix, United States Army.
I think a hero is what someone looks up to rather than what you did. You know, you can be a hero in any walk of life, any any profession, any occupation you're in. There's military heroes, there's civilian heroes, police, firemen, they're all heroes, and people look up to them because they lay their life on the line to do things. And I don't like to consider myself a hero, but it's a title only. You know, I don't know that I did anything all that spectacular. I really don't.
If you had two more like him, you could march into hell and put the fire out. I can honestly say Drew Dix is one of the few people I've ever seen that had no concept of fear, none whatsoever.
In 1967, Green Beret Drew Dix was assigned to the Central Intelligence Agency.
Drew Dix was involved in some very hairy, clandestine type operations in Vietnam, many of which I'm sure Drew can't talk about.
As the lone American, Dix led Chinese, Cambodian, and Vietnamese mercenaries in unconventional operations.
Some soldiers, go to fight, a little bit scared,
During the Tet Offensive of 1968, Dix led a small contingent of troops in a harrowing 56-hour battle with 2 Viet Cong battalions.
I thought it was a kiss-off situation as far as I was concerned.
Nearly 600 Viet Cong had taken hold of Chow Doc. Determined to rescue the civilians, Dix took matters into his own hands. The action earned Dix the Medal of Honor. In one of the most courageous efforts in our nation's history, Drew Dix and his men, operating on instinct, rescued helpless citizens, and with no regard for their own safety, attacked and exterminated 2 Viet Cong battalions.
I was a 24-year-old sergeant that was put in a position of great responsibility, and I intended to fulfill that. I wasn't going to let anybody down. I mean, a lot of people say that you do these things because you're exceptionally brave or whatever. I don't think so. I think a person that knows what's got to be done and it's clear in their mind at the time, you just grab it and you do it.
Thank you very much. Let's see if I get this right. Thank you. You know, we got a great turnout here, and I'm grateful to each of you for coming here to see what we've done over the last few years, but more important, what we're going to do. And Sparky answered the phone, and we intend to take advantage of maybe that name. I don't know where he got the name Sparky, but we're going to add a little spark to the operation here. We're going to get some things going. But we, as you've heard and figured out, Medal of Honor Day is tomorrow. And there are Medal of Honor recipients around the country paying tribute to not themselves, but to the medal and what it stands for. And we have a large contingent of, I think, 17 in Washington, D.C. that will lay the wreath at the Tomb of the Unknown. And there are 6 medals awarded or in that tomb for actions for those that no one knows. And that brings the humility of wearing the Medal of Honor, because we all know that there were those that performed deeds far greater than ours, certainly those that performed deeds greater than mine, that received no recognition. So it's fitting that we do have them in the Tomb of the Unknown. But also, I wanted to share, because each of you were invited either by me or our staff or some of the founding donors and our board members. I wanted to tell you a little personal side of the Medal of Honor and what it stands for. Not many recipients will get up here and tell you about their action. That's pretty hard to do. In fact, I was asked this morning on a radio show about the action, and I to myself, I'm thinking, how do we talk about that when there are so many others that deserve the recognition for being involved in our country's wars? But what I wanted to talk about is what the burden is. And the Medal of Honor recipients do have a burden. They carry a burden that you can only imagine. When I was 25 years old and was told I was going to receive the Medal of Honor, it was 3 days before it was to be awarded. And in those days, that's the way they did it. They wanted to keep it out of the press as long as they could until the person received the medal. And the only reason why I was really grateful for it was I'm not a natural linguist. I really struggled to get my Special Forces language of Spanish down. And I was attending my very first day of Arabic language school because of a new area where I was going to be working. I'm thinking, what can I do to get out of this? And and I look back as the instructor started to tell us, this is not an easy course, and all of that stuff, and I knew it. I'm not a natural linguist. It's tough for me. And two of my team members were in the back, came to the back of the classroom and got the instructor's attention, and they mumbled back and forth, and then they called me up, and they escorted me to the brigade, the group commander office, the colonel, and I'm staff sergeant, so you don't really have too many opportunities to go see the colonel. And that's when the colonel told me I was going to Washington to receive the Medal of Honor. And you got to, not only was I thankful that I didn't have to go to Spanish, Arabic language school, I was pretty much shocked at the notion of receiving such a high award. I've never met a Medal of Honor recipient before. I only knew of 3 others in Pueblo, and delivering papers at 13 years old, driving up this very long road called Jerry Murphy. I'm wondering, what did this guy do to get a road named after him, and who is he, and all of that. So that's my connection to the Medal of Honor. And then I knew it must really be a big deal, because when the general officer, we only had one general officer in all the Special Forces at that time, called me in his office and said, I understand you got a guest list, can I be on it? That's pretty amazing, right? I figured the general could get his own seat to the White House, but it was a very limited ceremony because there were 4 of us. It was 4 services. The other 3 were aviators to get Air Force and a Marine aviator and the Navy aviator. And it was the last act that President Johnson did before he left office. So it was the East Room was pretty packed. And there was no room for the extra general. But I will tell you that I have to admit I was more nervous there than any time during the battle. Because sometimes in a battle you can figure out the outcome. This one, I never knew what was going to happen when President Johnson got up there, and he was quite an individual. Before I went in there, they had an escort there for me. Said you should go in the restroom and check your hair or something. I don't know. So I went in there, and then the president walked in, taking care of whatever he's doing and just talking away. And he was kind of that way. But anyway, it was a great experience. And so I went back to Fort Bragg, and I didn't realize that things had changed. You know, I wanted to be a Special Forces soldier. Actually, I wanted to stay in Vietnam, and I know now why they didn't let me stay, that the award was already approved, and I couldn't remain there as a Medal of Honor recipient or one that was recommended and approved for a Medal of Honor. So that all made sense, I guess. But so I'm at Fort Bragg now, and I get this invitation to go to Wilmington, North Carolina, to be in a parade for the Azalea Festival. I'm thinking, what am I going to do there, you know? So I go into the Sergeant Major, and I said, Sergeant Major Leal, Carlos Leal, I said, do I have to do this? He said, you don't really have to, but it'd be a good idea. It'd be good for all of your buddies to know, you know, that we're talking about what they do, and not that we could talk about what they do, but recognize, and you recognize them for them on their behalf. And besides that, you did a good job. Go down there and have a few beers and eat some shrimp and peanuts or whatever, you know. Okay, Sergeant Major. So they met me, and sure enough, there was somebody there that had a tray with some Falstaff beers in them, and so I drank a couple of those. It was a hot day in North Carolina, and so I said, well, that's all right. And this convertible pulls up. This nice-looking lady is driving it, and she has a beer or two sitting there for me. I guess somebody heard it. I drink a beer once in a while. But anyway, so I'm there, and she said, well, get up on the top and just wave at everybody. And they were very accommodating with the beverages. And so then they stop at the end of the parade, and we go into this this lobby of this hotel, and there's going to be a lunch. Oh, that's good. We're going to have lunch. And sure enough, there's somebody with a tray, and there's a couple of nice mixed drinks and a can of Falstaff, you know. So I drank a couple of those, and go into have lunch, dinner, and I'm at the head table, and sure enough, there's another can of Falstaff, and shrimp cocktail and peanuts everywhere. And I'm having a good time talking to the mayor and everything, and then I looked down at the program, and it has a nice program, and then it says guest speaker Drew Dix, 45 minutes. So right away I said, well, I wish I hadn't had quite so many of those Falstaffs, and so that's what it's like, and it's the way it's been for a long time since those days in North Carolina. But let me just go back just one more step before I go into something else. I'm doing this because it's personal. I've never shared with a lot of people. But so in the 16th of January, last thing that President Johnson did, he left office, and President Nixon's going to take over. I didn't realize that every Medal of Honor recipient is invited to every inaugural. Non-political, it's just you get an invitation. So this escort officer said, hey, your buddies are all down in Alexandria, Virginia, in these hotels down there. We'll just take you down there. And I thought it was some special forces guys, you know. No, it was getting ready to go to the inaugural on the 20th or 21st, whatever it was, a couple of days later. I said, my buddies, I never even knew a Medal of Honor recipient until I met Richard Pless, Clyde Lassen, and Joe Jackson that received the medal with me. And so I'm, okay, my buddies, there was about almost 400. Of those 900 or so that were awarded, I met about 400 of them. And there were 2 from the Spanish-American War. There was 1 from the Boxer Rebellion, 1 from the Nicaragua campaign, and 1 that dove on the Squalus with nothing but a bucket on his head in a submarine that went down. Mike Milowski, non-combat award, but very much deserving, but one of the last ones that were non-combat. But anyway, I'm figuring out what am I going to do with all these 400 of these people? I don't know them. So I walk in this hotel, and there's Luther Skaggs. He was the president of the Medal of Honor Society, sitting there, and a crusty old guy, but nice as could be. He said, "Oh, you're the new guy, right? One of the new guys." I said, "Yes, sir, I am." He said, "You don't need to serve me. I'm just like you." and that's Luther. And he said, here's what you do. When the limos are coming to pick us up to go to this event, and you'll just jump into one. And so I do. I jump into this limo. There's two guys, obviously aviators, because they're talking like aviators do, you know, this kind of stuff. And I jump in there, and they're one on one side, one on the other, and they didn't move over. I just sat in the middle, and the guy stuck out his hand and says, I'm Eddie Rickenbacker. This is Jimmy Doolittle. Welcome to the group. And I'd heard about those guys. And I'm thinking, these are my buddies. So that's been the ride ever since. But the one thing that I will tell you that every recipient is absolutely different. Just like everybody here. We are different in a lot of ways. But we have one thing in common. We have a thin blue ribbon that ties us all together. And we all have the same feeling that I've already talked about, and that's the incredible burden that we all carry for those that didn't get recognized, that died on the battlefield, and there is no one that witnessed what they did because there were no survivors. And I know of one individual, because of the criteria of the medal, we couldn't award it to him, but we were on an ambush, and he was on the end of extreme end, and no one saw what he was doing, but he was out of ammunition, and he died with his knife in his hand. I know he didn't just give up, but what could you say? You cannot make things up when it comes to something so special, so unique. And I'm very proud to be able to wear the medal for this country. I'm very proud to be able to wear it for those that I fought alongside and those that fought before me, to give us the freedoms that we have. And this medal does one thing. It gives me a mouthpiece to talk about things like honor, integrity, and patriotism. And one of the most common questions that young people ask, what is honor? What is patriotism? And what is integrity? Integrity is kind of an easy one to explain. It's doing the right thing when nobody's looking. A lot of people say, I do everything's right, but they're also looking around to make sure somebody's looking or whatever. When you get to that point, like the guy on the end of our ambush, that man had integrity. He had honor because he was honoring us by giving his life for us. Nobody was looking, but he did it. Honor is something that is a little harder to explain because things are changing in this world. What do we honor and who do we honor? And that's the most difficult. I tie it to patriotism because I can explain. You honor your family, your friends, those you work with, by doing good for them. But you honor your country because you love your country. That's patriotism. And for the life of me, I can't figure out why we don't have more patriots than ever right now, because this country is allowing people to be as weird as they want to be, do anything they want to be, and protect them in doing it. So we should have a lot of patriots out there, but for some reason, to be a patriot is being criticized, that you're old-fashioned or whatever. Well, I'll tell you, I've been in parts of the world where things didn't go so well, and the wrong people got in power, and there was a lot of suffering going on. They don't care what you are, who you are, as long as you toe the line for the new leader. I've seen that. Cambodia, when they lost, 25 to 30% of the population was executed. Can you imagine? And guess who they executed? They executed the activists. that supported them, but they couldn't handle them anymore, so they eliminated that. We don't have to be political to talk about what's doing right. This Center for American Values is so apolitical. We do not follow any political party whatsoever. But our values cross the line. It should cross the line of all of those parties and all those cultures, all of those ethnicities, and because this country gives us the ability to say what we want, what we believe, and not suffer the consequences of having a disagreement. That's why all of us fought for what we did for, and that's why I'm proud to be able to stand here and represent all of those. There's only 65 Medal of Honor recipients remaining alive. Paris Davis, who received it last month, I guess it was, I talked to him. I knew him from Special Forces when he was a young captain. So it's a close group. And so when you have an opportunity to be a voice, then you should be a voice and not worry too much about the consequences, because if you're saying the right thing, right is right, and you cannot go to your grave thinking, I regret not doing more. You cannot do that. That's one of the worst things that can happen to an individual, is know that you did the best you can. I don't know on that battle in Vietnam whether what I did would have changed the battle. I don't know. You do not receive a Medal of Honor for how many enemy you kill. You receive a Medal of Honor for how many people you save at the risk of your life. That's it. Now, in doing so, times are tough and you're crowded, you probably take away some of the enemy's, Not embarrassed about that, not ashamed of it. We believe in what we believed in, and I was doing it for those that also believe in what I believe in and would have done it for me. Many of the Medal of Honor, mine was for a longer period of time, 50 some hours, 6 hours. Some of them, most of them in the Korean War, and a lot of them in Vietnam, were for diving on a hand grenade. Instantaneous thought. Clearly, they didn't get out of the way, they went on it. There's a lot of research about that to make sure that they were intended to do it. Two of the Medal of Honor recipients alive that I know did that and survived the blast. And they've been here in 2017, when we had our last convention. The recipients love Pueblo. They like the center. That's why in June, we invited them all here. We've invited all of the recipients to come here for a retreat. No obligations, no speaking, just to get to know each other, get back on the purpose of the Medal of Honor Society, chartered in 1958, was to promote camaraderie, to build rapport, and to help recipients understand this burden that's placed on them. And you can imagine in World War II, when the medal was changed in 1917, but in World War II, most of them were draftees. So you get folks from all walks of life. All of a sudden, this is placed on them. Just like I was asked to speak at the Azalea Festival in Wilmington, North Carolina. I won't say how I did, because I don't know how I did. I didn't go back to another Azalea Festival, but I went to a lot of other things over the years. But this place right here is special. It's the middle of the United States. And we have the mouthpiece right here. And with co-founder Brad Padula and the great work they do in delivering, They make us all look good on these screens, right? That's the talent. But we're bringing them back here for 2 full days here in Pueblo. And some of these people say, well, what can I do to help? Can I come? Well, no, you can't. You can't help because we made a criteria with the help of a generous donor that said, I don't want to be recognized. The only request I have is that no donors are involved, so there's no corporate obligation to any recipient, period. Isn't that a beautiful gift? And we're not talking about a few bucks here. We're talking about first class, everything. So we're letting you know what's going on in this great town. Unless you join the center, you may not be coming to this event, but we've got some board members and some helpers that are coming. But I just want to let you know. So I think this is where Brad said I can say roll it. Roll 'em, Brad.
Why did you do what you did? You know, seems like a simple question because you're there because of something you did. They want to know why you did it. Well, it's a more complicated question than that. One, that was my job, and I was in the military, and we had a mission to do, and you do what you're supposed to do. And to not do it is not right. You have to do what's right. And the other thing is, at that moment, you're doing it for those on your left and your right. You become a patriot when you believe in the country that you belong to, that you're not just a consumer, that you are part of making it better. Not different, just better, because we always have to strive to make ourselves, our country, and our family better. You've got to understand the situation. If you understand it, you can deal with things a lot easier. If you make a decision on just what someone tells you, you're going to have a harder time with it because maybe they're dealing with adversity by sharing their fear with you and encouraging you to join them. You have a mind, you have a brain. You should be able to decide what's right or wrong. And pretty soon, if you start believing this way only because you believe you're supposed to believe this way, then someday you're going to have a confrontation with what's right or wrong. Look for the facts. Make your decision based on facts, not just what someone tells you that it could be, what it may do. Sure, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. But if you just do the best you can to overcome it and overcome the void in knowledge, you're going to deal with it fine. Teachers, there are a couple of them that left a mark on me that will never go away because I realized that they were really into it for us, and I respected that. And then as I went through life and went in the military, I ran into people that understood what a sacrifice was. And I look at some of those people I worked with, the indigenous people, the Vietnamese, the Chinese. I've got a couple in mind that are truly my heroes because under great odds, they stood up for what they believed in, and we fought together. And then there's heroes that I've run into after that time where they've made sacrifices because they believe in their cause. They believe in what's right. Look to the future in a positive way. Decide what it is you like to do and balance that to what you know you are capable of doing. You have the greatest opportunity now to be successful. So look at this as the best opportunity you will ever have. And always, never make your goal so far out there that you're going to fail before you even see the objective. This is your long-term goal. This is what I want to do. And figure out how you can get there and accomplish intermediate goals. You'll feel good about yourself. You can then, the objective will become clearer as you get closer to it.